Hello and welcome back to Talent Acquisition Matters with me, Tom Dove, founder of Fraser Dove International, the life sciences talent consultancy. So on this episode, we've got a wealth of talent acquisition experience in today's guest, from large pharma to scale-up CAR T cell therapy companies. Today's guest has helped develop TA strategies to solve some of the industry's most complex challenges. So today's guest is Bally Chima from Pinnacle Talent. Hi, how you doing?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Thanks, Tom. How are you? Appreciate the invite. It's been well worth the wait.
Yeah, great. Yeah. So, Bally, please could you just take a moment to introduce yourself to our listeners?
Of course. So, like you rightly said, Tom, my background is predominantly within the life science sector, and it's always been internal talent, resourcing manager, head of talent within sort of most of the TA functions. Gene therapy, I've worked for some of the major gene therapy players within the UK. So you're looking at Autolomous, you're looking at Ori Biotech, Cell and Gene Therapy Catapult, and some of the more wider pharma companies that you may have heard of who have a gene therapy branch. So Novartis, had a stint with Novartis as well. And predominantly it's been looking after the whole piece of talent. So I would do their whole recruitment piece, look after their internal processes, improve their internal processes, introduce new processes, but also the relationship management internally with internal stakeholders and external stakeholders like yourself as well. And hopefully to bring a better outcome in terms of bringing the best talent globally across the sector.
Yeah, cool. Because you and I have had some conversations in the past, and what I've really enjoyed when we've spoken is honesty, clarity, and your kind of philosophy on talent. So, there are lots of complexities for the different size companies you've worked with and for, the likes of Novartis with hundreds of thousands of employees to then a company with 10, 15, 20. So one of the first questions that I wanted to ask is around the complexities of talent attraction. And for super niche companies, how do you feel it's best to take a company brand to the talent market?
I think it's a great question, by the way. I think it's important that you stand out from the marketplace, make yourself, give yourself a competitive advantage, ensure that you do something different, whether that's in your preparation, whether that's in your strategy, have a good business model. It's important that you do have a strategy. So a lot of companies that I've worked for have been early investment.
Yeah, okay.
A lot of sort of Series A, Series B, Series C funding, where investors have gone in and plowed a lot of money into companies because they like the product, like the idea. But, also you need to have a strategy to think about the 3 to 5 year exit plan. So You're talking about, are we going to IPO? Are we going to, when our equity goes up, how are we going to develop our market strategy, market penetration? But all of that's linked, of course, to attracting the right sort of people, recruiting the right sort of talent, investing at the right time. So all of those things are important about a company being able to promote themselves. The thing is, Tom, there are so many companies in this area. There is a massive explosion at the moment within startup, biotechs, gene therapy, innovative technologies, innovative platforms. So who's the next round of funding? Who's the next company? Who's the next big thing? So what you've got to look for is, I guess, if I had my investment hat on, which I don't, but if I did, it would be, what's the strategy? What's the strategy for manufacturing? What's the strategy for recruitment? How are we going to get the best talent? Who do I want as my COO? Who does I want as my CEO? Do I need a mixture of people from life sciences? Do I need a mixture of people from technology? Is it business related? So all of those things, I think, from talking to a few investment companies, I did a bit of work with a venture capitalist company, and all of those things go into play when they invest in companies. It's not just a straightforward business decision. It's probably an algorithm that they use that's quite complex. But they know what they're doing because they want to see a return on their investment. So I think, just to reiterate, it's important to stand out. It's important to have a good strategy. It's important to have a good business plan. And social media is very important. I think, things like messages that go through your website, LinkedIn, and you have to be careful of which social media platforms you use, of course.
Yeah.
I think they have to be appropriate and suitable for your business. Many more are using Twitter, obviously, and Instagram and that sort of thing. But it needs to be suitable. The message and the tone needs to be good. And that's why people like, the CMOs, the head of marketing are so important about getting that message across, understanding the business, the constraints, the challenges, and being able to communicate that really well.
Yeah, because I think, in a world that we work within this life sciences space, it is very purpose driven, and you don't want to kind of become one of many really purpose driven companies that can't cut through the noise. So I think from you hit the nail on the head there with the CMO and the marketing piece. I think it's great for the actual brand, the business, the products, all those kind of things, but also they need to dedicate enough time to bringing talent towards their business too. And what we started to see is some of the best companies within this kind of scale up space are doing things like, I don't know, talent acquisition podcasts or, interviews with the organization, and then using those as assets when they're saying, hey, come and work for us, listen to our CEO or our CMO. So I think it's really, there's a lot of change to digital now, and it's working very well for some.
Yeah, you're totally right. The engagement piece is so important, where a prospective person wanting to join a company, a prospective investor, they need to feel that engagement. They need to feel connected. They need to feel that this is someone I can work for. This is someone that I would enjoy working for. I can see a long-term future there. So those sorts of things where they engage with the audience outside. Traditionally, you would have done that face to face, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Yep, or an event, or a CPHI,
or an event, or a corporate conference, or something like that. Over the past 18 months, it's shown us that we can't always do that face to face, and challenges of COVID and all that sort of thing means that we can do it in other ways, and it will still have that significant impact. It needs to have the follow up as well. But I think I, for instance, I've done almost, as you have, Tom, no doubt, you've done predominantly all of your recruitment from either your office or your home for a lot of the time. And not just in the UK, I've done it in the States, and I've done it all across Europe over these past 18 months. And, touch wood, that's gone really well. It would have been great to have some more face-to-face interaction and all of that, but it is what it is. But I think, as we evolve, and I think as the recruitment and talent industry evolves, we're seeing that there's no traditional way of doing it.
Yeah.
We're now seeing that, we have to adapt. You have to evolve. If you don't, you get left behind. Like with every business. So with every sector, with every industry, with every role that you do, you need to make yourself, for instance, you look at new techniques about video interviewing and being able to present. And I think sometimes companies miss a trick when they go through a 4, 5, 6, 7 stage process. I never quite understood that. I do understand the complexities of trying to meet everyone, but sometimes this is my personal opinion, of course, it's overkill.
Yes. Yeah.
It's overkill.
I think, it's a really interesting, topic that you're talking about now, because, how do you stand out in this busy market? And I actually think a lot of it is to do with candidate experience. Because, I've said this before, but, the bad news about, an interview process travels much faster than good news. So, how much time do you have to dedicate on kind of re-educating your hiring stakeholders about candidate experience?
It's a great point, and it's something I'm really passionate about, is the candidate experience, and it's bandied about a lot by TA people and all of that stuff. But I'm really passionate about it because if you've had a bad candidate experience, and I have personally as well, it fills you with dread. It fills you with a sense of, I can't work with these guys. I wouldn't want to work with these guys. They're not giving me the confidence that I feel I need. And I think education is important. If you want to use that phrase, education, I've sat down with many a CEO and head of the hiring managers, and I've said, guys, I think we're making this too complex. You're making this harder than it can be. this stage process, that stage, having to meet this, and why can't we, accelerate that perhaps a little bit? Maybe put 2 or 3 people together instead of another meet and another meet and another meet. You find that process goes on for a long time. And you must understand that a lot of clients are under the impression they're going to wait for you.
Yep.
A lot of clients are under the impression, this candidate's ours, don't worry about it. We've got him or her, we've got them just where we need them. And, we can make the decision when we choose. And that's not the case at all. If you're a good candidate in this sort of marketplace, you know this yourself, Tom, by talking to candidates a lot, is that they will have opportunities elsewhere. And based upon the personal experience that they have, they will choose, this is taking too long for me. I've got other things on the table where there's an offer, where I can see that there's a future. These guys are going on and on and on and on. When's the end? You've got to think of the perception. You have to look at that perception of how you come across It's just plain and simple as that.
Yeah, I think sometimes it could even be like a little bit of opening the door into what the business is actually like. So if the candidate experience is poor, or the interviews are very, nobody seems to be able to make a decision, or it's too slow, it's too cumbersome, will that actually be what your role is like? And that is one of the dynamics that I think we're really trying to help our customers on. And it is that education piece. It's by saying, look, we know best practice, these companies are doing it really well. These companies aren't doing it so well. Let's try and help re-educate you. And this is the right kind of candidate experience.
And that's a really good point you make, and never be afraid, as someone who works in recruitment, to tell clients, is that I don't think you're getting this right. This, in our experience, we do this, because most companies, you would hope that they would listen to an experienced recruiter, someone who's been doing it a while. They want to do it better. I always feel that companies want to do it. They don't want to feel that they're getting it wrong. They don't want to feel the perception that why aren't people accepting our offers?
Yeah.
No company wants that. What they want is a smooth, efficient process where the feedback mutually both ways is, it's going to be acceptable. So never be afraid. I agree with you. It is a little window into the way of the mindset of a company. Sometimes it's circumstances. Sometimes I think to myself, is it they're really overly cautious because of funding? Is it overly cautious because it's such an important role that you have to take your time? I totally understand that you do have to take your time, because if you make the wrong hire, an appointment can be expensive. It can also be costly, but time as well is something you can't get back from companies. So I do understand that you have to take your time. You have to ensure that you have the right caliber of person. But I also think that if you know.
And go for it. Make the decision.
And go for it. You've got experience. I do say that sometimes. You look at, I sometimes sit with hiring managers, think to myself, they've only got to that position through promotion, and they don't have much experience of hiring. They're very senior people, and the level of experience they have of asking the right questions, of what they should be asking appropriately and what they shouldn't. I've had to coach, a number of hiring managers who are very senior over the years, and just, say, let me spend some time with you. Let's work to it together, because often either they're embarrassed about it.
Yeah. Or it's the way that things have always been done, and it's like a 20-year-old version of recruitment.
That's exactly it. They're embarrassed about, not being able to make those decisions concisely and clearly, and not having had that level of experience in recruitment. So, I actually quite enjoy that process of being able to help, coach, advise, hiring managers how to make those decisions, give them the confidence. For me, it's always about giving those people the confidence to then put them in a better position. A lot of it is about fear. A lot of it sometimes is about, what if I make the wrong decision here?
Yeah.
What is my superior going to think of me?
Yeah. And on that, as you said earlier, I think it depends on the company size, the funding, all of these kind of things, because
Yeah.
Myself and the company that I run, we've worked with some companies in that scale up mode that have made some decisions quite quickly that maybe weren't values aligned and were going more on a technical competence rather than the values of the person, and how they would mix with the rest of the business. And then all of a sudden, 12 months down the line, they have brought somebody in that actually isn't the right makeup for the organization. And it can be quite challenging to then untangle that. So I think it all depends on size and scope of business. But what's your thoughts on kind of interviewing people from a values perspective and staying true to that as well?
Yeah, it's come up a lot, Tom, for me over the past year. Is a lot of companies have said to me, a handful of companies have said to me, we do hire on values, Bally. They need to culturally fit with what we believe in and what we are. And it's an interesting concept because I believe in it to a large extent, but these values, Tom, sometimes aren't clearly defined.
Yep.
So if you're a startup, how are you really going to define your values to an individual if you've only been around 9 months?
Yeah.
6 months. Values take time to build. You can't overnight say these are our values and there's a list of 7 things.
They're on the wall.
Yeah. They're on the wall and all that sort of stuff. From my experience of working in companies where values have been worked on and they've got focus groups in and strategy groups to work on what's right, you need to involve everyone. Yeah. It's not decisions made at the very top. It's decisions made by all of the people, and you live and breathe those values. So I think, I do see the value, if you like, in hiring on those sorts of those traits.
Yeah.
The traits that are important to a business, and it's not always, but it's usually based upon mutual trust and respect. If you work in a startup, there's not going to be many processes. You will be heavily involved in a lot of stuff. It won't just be your area. So you might be working, I don't know, longer hours than you would anticipate in a normal thing. But in a company that's well developed, like I said, a bigger pharma company, you just have a job there. There's 20 other people surrounding you. You do that job day in, day out. Whereas in a startup, it can be a little, I won't use the word chaotic. It's busy. It's different strands, lots of things happening very quickly, and thus by nature, I mean, for me, the best thing about it, what I've always enjoyed about working in a startup environment, is the things happen quicker.
Yeah, and you wear lots of different hats. I mean, even from a talent perspective, you're probably helping with the strategy, you're educating on what kind of people companies can actually hire when you want to be doing that. I think for us, from the values piece, speaking to that candidate market, we're also seeing a lot of this now being a two-way street. So it is a candidate-driven market. Pretty much every industry is right now. But especially within life sciences, what we're seeing is the candidates are able to kind of digest information from the interviews and say, do you know what? I really liked those people and I like what their mission is and I like their vision. I really believe in it. Potentially, it's going to be a very challenging and stretching role over the next few years, but that is what I'm interested in. And then when sometimes people get it wrong, what we find is candidates saying, technically, the role sounds really good, but I'm not really that bought in. And then that's a pretty challenging conversation we then have to have with the client to say, look, the feedback is not great from the candidate's not really bought in. And that's when the penny starts to drop and they go, okay, cool, we need to work on this a little bit more. But I think the feedback piece is very interesting. From a talent acquisition standpoint, how do you guys manage it? Because I know it's not always easy to collate if you've got all of these roles going on, so many different hiring managers. For us, it's the biggest frustration, from a candidate perspective, that the feedback just isn't either, in depth enough or it doesn't exist at all. So how do you try and overcome that?
It's one of the biggest challenges, I think, for organizations and people within talent, with so much happening with so many applications, but there's no excuse. There is no excuse for people that get to the latter. If you face-to-face interview someone, I have always made it my goal to give written feedback to all of those people that go through the interview process. So I will take my time to write up all of their answers, and it'll take me 45 minutes probably for each individual candidate. I will then write that up, successful or unsuccessful, and I will then send it to the candidate post-interview.
Right.
And one of the reasons I do that, I know everyone doesn't do that, but I do that, and I know other people do that, is because for me it shows that we care.
Yep.
I care that you've taken the time to apply, whether that you have done that yourself, or whether you have done that through a company like yourself. But you've spent 2 hours, 3 hours in a couple of meetings with us. The least that I can do for you is tell you where we thought you did really well, and perhaps areas where you can develop. And so many people over the years have said, Bally, I've never received anything like this.
Right.
I really appreciate it. And a couple of times, what's made me happy, if you like, what I've really enjoyed is, presenting feedback to a candidate. Let's say they, for whatever reason, they just didn't quite meet the benchmark on this occasion, you've given feedback to say that they lacked experience maybe in this area, come back in another year or something along those lines. I know it's happened within sort of junior scientist roles for me. And then a year later, I've seen that application from that candidate, and they've had another year's experience.
Yep.
And we've re-interviewed and they've got the job.
Yeah, perfect.
So for me, that shows a couple of things. That shows application from the candidate to go out and look at the feedback that's been presented to them and say, do you know what? I probably could do with another year's experience. I want to go and show these guys.
Yeah.
Not just us. I'm going to, improve myself, and maybe, apply elsewhere or whatever. Get that under their belt, and they've had the ability and it's bravery. I'd call it bravery as well, to go back again and say, I'd like to apply again. I think, I've got the relevant experience now. I'm a year wiser, there's a year under my belt. I've been in this environment. I'm comfortable. I have more exposure.
Yep.
And I've practically done those things that you wanted me to do. So I get a great sense of enjoyment from that. It might feel like, it's a trite thing to say, but I think I'll take the little wins, Tom, where you can say, I get a great deal of pleasure where people have done that and come back and improve themselves. And
it's human. That for me is the human element of HR, or it's, empathy. As you said earlier, you've been through some bad processes yourself as a candidate, how that feels. Yeah. And I think sometimes with, there is lots of time consuming elements to any part of talent acquisition. But I think you've absolutely nailed it from a feedback perspective. If you can just give somebody what they want or need, positive or negative, it will help them develop. Plus, I think the ripple effect from good candidate experience, even if they don't get the job for that 12 months, or, even if they don't go back as an applicant, they will still have a positive thought process about the company that you're working with.
Yeah, and I think that's important. I think that, regardless of if they were successful or unsuccessful, I want that candidate to go away and say, okay, and perhaps on this occasion I didn't get the role, but if they were to talk about it with their friends or colleagues, or about the experience that they had, they said, I really enjoyed talking to the company. I really enjoyed the process. It's a great company. That feedback is important to me because, like you said, I think it takes a long time to build up company reputation, company exposure out there, and a couple of incidents where the company hasn't really covered itself in glory can really hinder the whole attraction process, the whole talent process, the whole recruitment process. So I think those things you have to be wary of as a company, and I think more and more companies are being aware of their brand. They're being aware of how they're being perceived outside, inside, on the on social media, on forums, you know, Glassdoor and all these other places, and where people can write. It's an open forum, Tom, isn't it? People can write whatever they want about a company, and you either have to prove or disprove that. So I think the only thing that you can do as a company is do your best to ensure that whatever experience they have is, you feel it to be a positive one.
Yeah, I find those Glassdoor type analogies quite interesting. Nobody goes, I've had a great day at work. Before I go, I'm going to go on Glassdoor and just say how good it was. And I think that's the same with negative feedback from a candidate experience standpoint, because people will be more open within their kind of confidants or their smaller network that they can talk to in, say, life sciences, and they'll say, oh yeah, I interviewed there and it was absolutely terrible. I mean, I wouldn't bother, you know. Or we then speak to some candidates as a group, and they'll say, oh, that company, no, I've heard negative things about how they interview people. And then it's for us to say, actually, no, let us explain. This is what we're doing with talent acquisition. We are almost like the extension of your voice to try and close some of those gaps.
And that's where I see you guys as being very important. I always see the partnership approach that, you know, working with people like yourself, Tom, as really bringing you in to the conversation, you know, showing you what our plan and projections are like for recruitment, and being able to understand, because, you know, however much more you understand about us as a business and me as an individual, or some of the hiring managers, you'll get to know us better.
Yes.
You know, we're all, like you said here, Tom, we're all human. No one's trying to put up a front, hopefully, and no one's trying to show you something different. What we're trying to show you is what we are about as a company. We want the best people, and we want you to find the best people. So I think those are important things, and I think hopefully most TA people understand that, you know, the partnership approach with guys like yourself is really important, because you are an extension of what we do. Yeah. I've always been open when working with yourself and other people, Tom, is to say, you know, I did like the fact that you said I was honest and open. I hope that's not a bad trait. Is that you know, this is what we're trying to achieve. This is what we do. This is how we're going to do it. No one's perfect, and I don't pretend for any second any recruitment process is ideal or perfect. You try and do the best that you can within the confines of that organization. Like you said, if it's a startup, they will have teething problems. That's just the way it is. But with a bit of education, with a bit of persuasion, with the right people in the right room, at the same time, you can make things smoother, make that transition quicker. I think with the more you do things, it gets better. But no company should think that they can't improve on things.
Yeah.
Even if they've been doing a process for years.
And we speak the same language. You know, I think from a talent or recruiting perspective, I think sometimes hiring stakeholders have a different, you know, philosophy on, okay, I have this VP of quality position that I need filled by the end of next week. You're like, okay, cool. Yeah. It's going to take a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
You know, we look at the concept of 100 hours per search. So we work at the executive level, you know, low volume, high complexity searches. And we think that it's taking 100 hours from assessment, qualification, sourcing, attraction, all of those kind of things, interview process, candidate experience, offer, negotiation, close. You know, sometimes if we're working with some TA folk that are working on, I don't know, 20 live vacancies at any one time on their own, you know, the 100 hours times 20 is just unfathomable. Yeah. And plus, that's only now, you know, there's more roles coming. So we try to, you know, embed ourselves in that talent strategy as much as we can. But it is all about openness, clarity, communication. That is, I feel, the best way that TA can work with suppliers. Yeah,
I agree with you 100%, Tom. I think, you know, within the realms of sort of confidentiality and all the rest of it, there will be certain things that obviously you can't disclose, just the way the nature of the company and maybe their strategy and all the rest of it. But if we can give you as much information as we can that will make your job easier to help us, why wouldn't you do that? Yeah. In the form of collaboration and being able to help us, it just makes my job easier, makes your job easier. And I think the collaboration piece is really important. You can see that when you talk to candidates. You can see that with with the experience and being able to get people through quicker, and how they feel. How you make someone feel is important. People sometimes, sadly, you become a commodity with so many applicants, so many opportunities, so many different things going on. You never want to become a commodity. You never want to just be another person that you've ignored. It's a small industry, it's a small world. Those things can come back and bite you. So you just have to be careful that whoever you come into contact with, whoever you treat is a prospective person you're going to work with again, you're going to come in contact with again. They will have an opinion of you. That's important. That opinion, you hope, is the best that it can be.
Yeah, and I think kind of reading between the lines here, it's peer-to-peer communication. Internally, externally, as long as you have that kind of honesty, the trust element needs to be built, but that is the way that we could build partnerships here. So obviously we've spoken about external suppliers. I'm interested in your thoughts though on the internal team, right? And what could the perfect in-house talent team look like for one of those scale-up organizations?
Yeah, I looked at that earlier, and I'll try to write down a few things about that. So for me, Tom, it's about where it's worked well for me, Tom, is where I believe there's a good mix of individuals. So I would never go with people that always look and think the same.
Yeah, okay.
And I'll explain what I mean by that. I've often gone into organizations and they've really promoted themselves as, this might be a bit controversial, so brace yourself, as being really diverse and being able to cater to everyone. And you go into the organization and no one looks like me.
Yep.
And or they all look very similar. For me, I think what I guess what I'm trying to say is that you need to have a diverse workforce of people who look, think, maybe sound differently, come from a different background. This is an ideal scenario, by the way, Tom. I worked in organizations where there have been 23 different nationalities, 30 different languages. It's been incredible.
Yeah.
I know you're talking just about talent, but I'm talking about the organization. That gives you so much more breadth, depth, different thinking, different culturally, the way people interact with each other is amazing.
Yeah.
I found that the best companies to work for, they cater to everyone. They're inclusive, and all that stuff nowadays is really important, because you might not think much of it, but when applicants look at people's websites and look at people in stock photos and all that sort of stuff, if they can't see a representation of someone that looks similar to themselves, it might switch them off.
Yeah,
it might switch them off. So it's just something to be aware of. So I think those things are important. I think companies are working hard.
Yep.
Companies are working hard to address those disparities in maybe sex, gender, ethnicity, and all that sort of stuff. So trying to get a more diverse workforce, it will really improve the way your organization is perceived outside.
Yeah,
is my experience of it. So I think to answer your question, Tom, directly about what does a great, perfect talent team look like, I would say a mixture of enthusiasm, youth, and experience. So I would go for people who might be relatively new to the industry, but have that passion, desire, and drive to improve.
Yep.
To ask questions, to learn, and people like me who've been around a long time, who can maybe teach them. Because there was at one point where I learned from someone else.
Yeah.
I learned from a guy who'd been around 18 or 20 years. I never did it like him, but I used to watch the way he used to do stuff and if you like, cherry pick.
Yeah.
Cherry pick the best stuff from him, but then do it the way I could. I couldn't be like him, but do it the way I could. Do it the way I could bring my personality across, bring my perception of what the role was, the company was, and bring my enthusiasm to that, interview, to that chat, whatever. So I think in an ideal world, Tom, if you could find a good mix of, age and experience, and if your team was big enough, a mixture of male and female as well, that's fantastic. If you're telling me what's the magic ingredient, a bit of everything.
Yeah. Rather than carbon
so
copies of the same. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because what then happens, Tom? A lot of companies hire in their own image.
Yep.
A lot of TA people hire in their own image. Must be like me. Thinks like me. Got to have 10 years experience in gene therapy. You don't need to think like you. You don't need to have 10 years experience in gene therapy. How are you going to learn? How are you going to gain that experience within that sector? You need someone to maybe give you that chance, give you that break. I sometimes see it on LinkedIn where people say, I've got all of this experience. They just need a break. Someone needs to give them a break.
Yeah.
And you can see how passionate, and for me, passion and drive are really important. I believe that they will take you a long way. Enthusiasm, enjoy it. Enjoy what you do. It's a great job. It's a great industry to be part of. I've had the best time ever working within talent and recruitment. Some of the most amazing experiences have been really enjoyable. Yes, it's hard work at times. We all know that's difficult to find really good people. It's not, you don't click your fingers and it doesn't happen like that. You know that yourself, Tom, right?
Yeah, exactly. Not that the hiring stakeholders always think the same.
Yeah, sadly, their expectation, you need to manage them as well. But enjoy it. If you can enjoy it and learn, I think you'll become a better version of yourself. And I sound like a bit of a life coach here, but I really think that those things are important about being able to enjoy it as well.
Yeah, because I feel that a role in talent is life-changing, because it's not only life-changing for you because you have this opportunity to speak with so many fantastic people across lots of different skill sets that are working in this purpose-led industry, but you are also changing their lives. So by bringing somebody into an organization, that maybe it could be a step up, or maybe it could be into a new area, or it could be the role that they were promised at a former organization and hit a glass ceiling, whatever it might be, you get that opportunity to open the door and be life-changing for somebody. I think it's fantastic.
Change their life for the better.
Yeah, absolutely. So on the team aspect, do you think that there is some kind of aspect of maybe job segregation of an in-house team? What's your thoughts on, dividing roles like scheduling or, talent sourcing, client engagement? How are you seeing that develop at the moment?
Yeah, I see teams do that. I see teams that, say you will only do this part of the job, or we feel that you are better doing this job. But I also see teams giving individuals exposure to a bit of everything.
Yeah.
You sometimes let people empower them, give them a bit of responsibility, because you just never know what people are capable of.
Yeah.
Or even what people are capable of, and you want them to demonstrate it.
Yeah.
And I've seen that over the years where I've given people a chance and I'm seeing them flourish, and it's really satisfying to see that.
Perfect, because I think the whole team dynamic is an interesting one. Some of the life sciences companies we work with have got thousands of people in recruitment, loads within talent acquisition, might be working with an RPO or something, and others are, as I said earlier, hiring anywhere between 30 and 60 people on their own in one go with no budget. So, the time constraints and the challenges are varying massively, but they're all after the same people. So that's a really interesting, change that I've seen at the moment, is, as you're talking about earlier, how can you position yourself in the right way? Candidate experience is important. Get the right in-house team, work with your suppliers in the right way. You've kind of created the perfect talent ecosystem there.
Yeah, I think, I think there's so many things that companies can do to, even if they're little improvements, Tom, that can make them the 1%ers, the 5%ers or whatever, that just make them recruit better, make them perceive better, give them the extra bit of advantage that you spoke about earlier, just make them stand out a little bit. Because the competition is so incredibly great, Tom, not only for attraction of talents and candidates, which is the main issue that we're talking about, is that the explosion of companies that are all trying to do similar or same things, and the investment that people are making from venture capitalist companies, is you have to do something unique. You have to have a strategy to be able to just elevate yourself a little bit.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask, actually, from a future perspective. How do you think talent acquisition might change over the next 5 years?
Yeah, I think it's ever evolving, Tom. I think where we are today is so different, perhaps, where it was 5 years previously.
Yeah.
Technology, I think, will only play a greater part than it's probably playing now. I would hope that we would get to a place where the thing is, you could. I don't want the thing to be automated to an extent where the human element is taken out altogether. I think that would be, personally, I think that would be a bad thing, because you should never take away the human element. You're dealing with humans, so having a conversation and talking to a human is what people want most of the time. They don't want to be sieved through an applicant tracking system with a Dear John Taleo email.
Agree. Yeah. Would you, I saw something actually on LinkedIn the other day that was saying, would you rather be rejected by a robot or by a human? But I think, throughout this entire conversation so far, I can really tell the passion that you have for the human element of this process. I think, 5 years ago, they probably said that recruitment was going to be overtaken by the technology. I think it will definitely improve. But now I personally feel, same as you, that the human element has to stay and perhaps be even more important in that assessment piece.
Yeah, I agree with you. You cannot stop the growth of technology. That's just the way of the world. And I think it really helps improve, streamline processes, all of that stuff, and being able to give you pipelines and all the rest of it. But the human interaction, never forget how important those interactions are, because you'll always remember them rather than the technology being put through a process via technology. Who really remembers that?
Yeah, that automated email was fantastic. I must recommend that to everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the best automated email I ever got. What you're going to remember is the interaction with guys like yourself, with me, and hiring managers. When you've been successful, and your first day, and your induction, and going for lunch, and all of that stuff, which is part of. I see that all part of that process. It doesn't stop. Recruitment doesn't stop when you start on the first day.
No.
You have to keep them challenged. You have to keep them motivated, because you have to show them that, we value you, want to develop you. So that process is ongoing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think that we're in the recruitment game anymore. I think we're in the retention game. How are you going to keep the best talent is actually by hiring them and then onboarding them in the right way and keeping them, engaged, enthused, and as ambassadors of your business. Okay, so I mean, this has been absolutely fantastic. I think your clear passion, purpose, empathy, human element is fantastic to hear. Could you give just the listeners a little bit of insight into, I don't know, some of the companies that you've helped and how you've helped them?
You mean sort of the clients I've worked with?
Yeah, or types of organizations that you've, especially over the last couple of years.
Yeah, so over the last couple of years, so I've worked predominantly, as I mentioned earlier, within sort of small startup biotechs within the gene therapy and CAR-T space. And, it's been really enjoyable watching companies flourish, watching companies grow from 25 to 50, 50 to 100, 100 to 200, whatever that process is, and watching them explode, watching them hire massively, watching the influx of talent. Talent attracts talent.
Yep.
So, when someone great comes into a company, it's quite swiftly followed by someone great. it's like a domino effect, and it's hard to keep the standard up. But I always maintain that. I always think my standards are high. I always want to feel like I'm bringing the best. I'm giving my best. I'm showcasing the best people to the organization that's available at our disposal. And you have to look at constraints. Are we paying the most? You have to look at salary benchmarking. Are we industry standard? Are we lower? Are we higher? Are we, all of those sorts of things you have to take into account. But I guess where you said where I've helped, I think I've helped by implementing processes, putting processes in place, being able to go in quickly and identify where there might be some areas that need improving.
Yeah.
Making things more efficient, and ultimately going in and being able to find the best talent. I always think that if I can, once I've finished a project or once I've worked with a company, if they can go away and say that, once they've had that experience with recruitment and they look around them, they're surrounded by people who've joined since I've been there, and they say, look what has happened over this past 18 months or whatever, and they can see just the level of individuals that have come in and it's more about the difference and the impact those people are going to make, Tom. That what really excites me is that I know that person is going to go in as a CTO,
yeah,
or as the head of business development. They're going to be doing some serious deals, and they are going to be making some serious. I'm no scientist, but I know for a fact that having had some experience myself with health issues this year, is they're incredible people, and being able to work in this industry, that's why I'm passionate about it, and being able to recruit people who are going to make a difference to people's lives is really important. And those people they're superheroes, Tom. We talk about the NHS and all these people. They are, of course, superheroes, but without people like scientists and companies who produce vaccines for mRNA and within a COVID vaccine environment, for instance, like BioNTech and Pfizer and all these sorts of guys, they would, we would be in a worse place. So I think being able to get the chance, it's always a privilege to me, is to work with these guys, really tap into their knowledge and learn from them as well. Just learn about how they do, and what they do is really incredible, inspiring.
Yeah, and I feel that talent acquisition sometimes gets a bit of a tough time, internally, externally, but I feel that they are an enabler to make the mission happen. And especially within life sciences and the purpose of this industry, as you said earlier, it is astounding that we're part of this, and it is down to the people that are in those organizations that can make it happen, get more access, different ways of manufacturing, the scientists within the space. I do think that TA, bringing those people into the organizations are really helping drive the mission and the vision. But Bally, it's been absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I think it's clear to hear for all of the listeners that your passion for people, your empathetic view, and the human nature of the way that you communicate, and the clarity around how you've done things has been really great. I've really enjoyed today's conversation. Look, for any listeners that want to get in touch, how can they get hold of you? What's the best kind of channels to reach you on?
But by the way, I just want to say exactly the same. So I really enjoyed the conversation, and thanks very much for letting me have this opportunity. To get in contact with me, I'm on LinkedIn most of the time, if not all of the time. So contact me via LinkedIn or my email address, which is my website, Pinnacle Talent, as well.
Perfect. Yeah. So we'll send this round, but absolutely fantastic. Thanks again for spending the time today. We've really enjoyed it.
It's a pleasure, Tom. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Cheers. Take care.
Cool. Bally. Perfect.
Happy with that?
Yeah. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I did, mate. Yeah. Thanks very much. It was really, really good questions, by the way.
Oh, thank
really
you.
Good questions.
I put a bit of prep into it. I've done a few of these, you see, where the questions are pretty loose. And then I'm also kind of writing things down to stay on track. But I thought
it was excellent. I really enjoyed it. I hope it flowed all right.
Yes, it did. Yeah, and you came nicely, the thing about the questions that I've got, you were kind of taking them into the next sections.
Oh, cool. That was by chance then.
Yeah. So then it was like, oh, candidate experience. Oh, feedback. Oh, this. So it's really
cool.
good. And I would say, I would do more of these if I were you.
Okay.
If you can, because your content is good. Your answers are really good from as I said, the human, the empathy standpoint, all of that kind of stuff. It will bring people towards you. And I just really enjoyed it. I think that we'll be able to create loads of.
That's good to hear. That's really good to hear. And I enjoyed it myself. It was a great chat, and I'd love to do something more like this, Tom. I think it gives us both exposure, and I think what you spoke about was really eloquent, and I did think about some of the answers as well. So it gave me a bit of thinking time as well about how I actually sometimes you do these things without actually realizing how much thought goes into them. So
and I did. Think about that. I've been put on the spot with some questions where I'm like, oh my god,
exactly.
I'm going to answer, and then you're on here like, so
exactly. So
a little bit of.
So I hope that's come across well, and I really look forward to seeing it at some point.
Yeah, cool. So what we're going to do, just so I can keep you in the loop, is we take all of the podcasts, and we're, as I said, getting 4 or 5 lined up. We send them to the editors. They then create all of the right material for us. So does our marketing team. And then what I'll do is I'll give you a date of when we're going to release it. And then I'll also give you some teaser stuff so that you could say, in 2 weeks' time, I'm going to be on this.
Oh, brilliant, man. I love that. I could share it on my, LinkedIn stuff and give myself a pat on the back. So
yeah, cool. And the other thing is, I'm actually doing this course at the moment, right? Where this is part of it. So, it's the course that I'm doing is called Key Person of Influence. And I'll send you something through about it. It's a book. It's like a little business book. But I think for people like us, I think it'd be worth a read because, you're out there growing your own kind of client base. And this is about trying to bring them to you a little bit. And the key person of influence thing, you could be quite easily the standout TA guy in cell and gene therapy just by doing a couple of little things like podcasts or like different.
And that was my reason behind accepting it. I think the company I spoke to yesterday, they want me to do a couple of days for them, and one of the reasons they chose me is because of my background within cell and gene therapy, and the company I'm working for now chose me for the same thing. So I feel like I'm a name. I'm not bigging myself up, but I'm a name in the cell and gene therapy just because of who I've worked for and what I've done. But I'd like to be a bit more behind it with stuff like this. I think I should be doing more of these, and I think if I can get away with doing a few more, I will, mate.
Yeah, and if you can micro niche into that space, life sciences, talent acquisition, cell and gene, you could easily do things like this. I mean, interviewing people in the cell and gene space with your own podcast is.
I'd love to, mate. I'd love to. I think I'll put some more thought around it and maybe do something around that.
But I'll send you this link anyway to this guy. I think it's just quite an interesting, from a sales perspective for people like us, I think it's quite an interesting thing. But then feel free to ask any questions that you've got around how any of this works. But thank you very much. It was great.
I will do, mate. Cheers, Tom. Thanks very much. Take care.
Cheers. Bye.